Reviewer live episode. I do really prefer doing live streams. It's much more my thing than doing the pre-recorded, but I do hope that you enjoyed the pre-recorded video from yesterday. But we are back, live stream format. Let me just adjust, because I think we're going to settle in for a little moment. There we go. Just adjust the lighting, tilt the glasses so you can't see as much glare. Hello and welcome. It is the 2nd of January 2023. I'm still getting used to saying 2023. I do have my cup of tea. I hope you all have your favourite drink. Do let me know what your favourite daytime drink is. Mine is coffee, and then I switch over to tea for an evening. Right. We have lots of people dropping in, and as you can tell from the title of this video, it is primarily about the Sussexes. So if you're not interested and you don't want to hear anything about them, then obviously feel free to skip this video. I'm not going to make you or hold you to watching it if you really don't want to. So there we go. But if you are sticking around, then there are lots of Sussex things to talk about. I have kind of made a list, I suppose. Let's just quickly start with the non-Sussex news, because there isn't much of it. Obviously, the majority of the working royals have not returned to work yet. They haven't returned to full-time duties from their Christmas holidays, although it is expected, as I've said in previous videos, for the royal family, well, King Charles, to return to duties a bit quicker and a bit sooner than what Queen Elizabeth used to. She used to stay at Sandringham until February, until Accession Day, and then she would return primarily to London to continue royal duties. We think King Charles will return a lot sooner than that back to royal duties. But, so like I say, we have a bit of a drought of actual working royal news. But we do know that Lady Susan Hussing, one of the former Queen's ladies in waiting, has been invited to the King's coronation. So there we go. She most definitely has not been frozen out. She has been invited to the coronation, and I would imagine that she would attend. Also, for those of you who are interested, the New Year's Honours list is now out. It has actually been published on the Royal Family Twitter account, so you can click on the link, you can open it as a PDF, and it will show you everybody who has been honoured, whether it be a regular person or someone in the public eye. That list is now out, and I just thought I'd just stop and mention about why that is so important. So obviously we know that all of the people will be will meet a royal who will be conducting that ceremonial service where they pin their little honor on their whatever it is that they're wearing, or if they're being knighted, of course, the sword. These duties are normally carried out by Prince William, would have been carried out by the Duke of Sussex as well. Princess Anne does it. King Charles will do it, and has done it for many years. So lots of royals are able to be there, but the British sovereign, the monarchy, is the font of honours, is the honour system here in the UK. It is, of course, very important, and it also coincides with the expectation that King Charles will retain the traditional garden parties, normally held in the summer in London, and they will typically be at the palace, like Buckingham Palace, but also at the Palace of Holyrood House as well. So it's expected that those formalities will continue in King Charles's reign, and this is how the country honours people that do outstanding good work and show duty and service. So it's really nice to see that that will be continuing, and that obviously we are still doing the honours list. I didn't ever expect that to actually end. Right, hello and welcome to everyone who is dropping in. I'm not going to say hello individually because it will take too long. Sheila has coffee first thing in the morning and then a little Kahlua at night. That sounds very nice. Okay, I'm going to kind of now go into the topics of the day. So it is, of course, we all know that Prince Harry next week is releasing his ghost-written autobiography, Spare, where, a lot of people are speculating on obviously what it will include. But now, today, we have a little bit more, um, I think, advanced warning of what to expect, because Prince Harry has given two interviews. He's given one interview to CBS's Anderson Cooper. I think he normally hosts 60 Minutes, is it? I haven't actually seen the show, but I am aware of Anderson Cooper. Um, and as far as I'm aware, he's a very, very nice man. But yeah, so Harry's given an interview stateside with Anderson Cooper. In the UK, he's given the interview to Tom Bradby, who he's had, a nice working relationship with over the years. Of course, Tom Bradby, I think, was the first person to go out to Africa to interview and film Harry when he was on his gap year. So they do have a long history. Also, Tom Bradby was, of course, the interviewer who famously asked Meghan on the Australasian tour how she was. And then obviously we all know what happened since then. So I think Harry has chosen two interviewers that he finds that he can trust. Anderson Cooper, who he probably hasn't known for a long time, but I think perhaps has views that align with Prince Harry's own views, and of course Tom Bradby, who he and William have been able to trust over the years. So we had the trailers for those two interviews today, and I saw the trailer with Tom Bradby, and obviously that had some audio in it, so we could actually hear what Prince Harry was, well, some of the answers to some of the questions. We didn't get to see what the questions were, but we got some snippets of answers. So it's very hard to kind of, work out the whole context of the trailer. After all, a trailer is just a trailer. But there were some things that were quite kind of jabbing and attacking on the royal family. You certainly couldn't, not you certainly couldn't misconstrue them as being nice things that have been said. So whereas people before were speculating that what the tone of the book would be, and I myself said that we do not know what's going to be in the book, we can tell from the trailer of the interview, I think, what the tone will be. So we have much more of a clear idea. Then I was reading snippets from the Anderson Cooper trailer, and where I saw the trailer, it was actually a silent trailer. There was just shots of Harry walking with Anderson Cooper, sat down, making hand gestures, but there was no words. So I was thinking, where on earth is there an audio of what he said? So I did check, and I did get it ready for everyone. So I will link to it. If I send a link, you'll be able to bring it up. So this actually shows a trailer where they talk. So there's two trailers, I suppose, for the Anderson Cooper version. One completely silent, and the other does actually have some audio. So if I post the link to the main CBS website, you'll be able to go there and see or see and listen to exactly what I did. And there is a breakdown of that. So let me just, before I take any comments and questions, I'll start with the CBS with Anderson Cooper for 60 Minutes. So, in answer to a question, Prince Harry said that he tried to keep his conversation with the British royal family private, but to combat stories in the tabloids, he's been forced to make his concerns public. I mean, I'm going to kind of, I suppose, talk. The best way might be to just kind of break it down and talk about it. So, um, I mean, we don't know, first of all, what conversations have gone on prior to Prince Harry leaving the royal family. I'm sure that we will be enlightened from Harry's perspective what some of those conversations might have been, what they might have looked like. But we, as public, do not know exactly what Prince Harry and the royal family, what rapport they had prior to him leaving. So that's one thing I think to note. But to combat stories, he says in the tabloids, he's been forced to make the concerns public. I don't think you can say that you've been forced. Nobody has forced you. Nobody has had, held anything to your head, making you do something. You weren't made to do the Oprah interview. You weren't made to even leave in the first place. So that's one thing that I think a lot of people will pick up on, the fact that you weren't actually forced to. Once you have actually left, although, of course, you have the right and you have the freedom to say something, it doesn't mean necessarily that you should. It doesn't mean that it's a good choice to make. However, we do know that Harry has made the choice to speak, and this is what we're going to have to deal with. And this will be, well, Harry will have to deal with whatever repercussions come of it. He continues, every single time I've tried to do it privately, there have been briefings and leakings and planting of stories against me and my wife. The family motto is never complain, never explain, but it's just a motto. Again, I have said this many, 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 many times since it kind of came to light. I think we can pretty much safely say that the palace uh, has had briefings against members of the royal family. That back in the day when that came to light for me, I did actually find that a bit of a shock. I'm not going to lie, but I have accepted that that is what went on, and I do think that there were briefings and leakings and plantings of stories between royal households. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think anyone can be the level of involvement of the principals. I'm thinking it is more to do with the households than rather the principals involved. Um, People may agree or disagree. I'm not entirely sure. You know, if it is this kind of big royal machine, how much say and sway do the main principals have over it? That is something to consider and to think about. I personally have the opinion that I do think it's wrong for you know an organization to brief against its principles. I do think that is wrong. I have never agreed with it. I have never said that that's the right thing to do. And I personally, if I was in charge of the palace, and I would be looking at a completely new system. I would be looking at a system where perhaps there are not multiple royal households. I actually think a modern, better system would actually be to have one household with one sort of head and blah 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 blah. So really simplify the structure, which would also save money and cost to the taxpayers, but not have these separate household. I think how it's kind of come about is that in previous decades, it's probably been seen as more simple and easy for each royal to have their individual household. Also, the way that things are financed. Let's not forget that, for example, when King Charles was Prince Charles, his income came from the Duchy of Cornwall, which is now Williams. So it kind of made, I suppose, more sense when there's a different financial income to have different households. However, I do think that it doesn't really matter nowadays where the money comes from. You can still separate the finances of it, but still have one overarching, I suppose, office, if you like, that then has staff that deals with individual members. If I was running it, I would probably do it that way. And I most definitely, if I caught anybody leaking stories about any of the royal family members, they would go through disciplinary procedures with a view to ending and terminating their jobs at the palace. I wouldn't stand for it personally. I would not stand for it. I don't think it's right to put out a story to squash another story. That to me is not right, and that probably has gone on, and I do think that that is something that is sad and something that needs to be looked at. I'm not entirely sure that Harry and Meghan trying in vain to change that outside of the institution is quite the right thing. I do think with the royal family, things do move slowly. Things kind of always end up keeping up, but things do move slowly. I think if you go back to Diana's days, she was quite aware that to make long affecting change, you have to be in this type of institution to do it. I think Harry and Meghan may have the misguided thoughts that they can make changes outside of the institution. I don't think they can. I very much think, oh, what's going on? There's an advert on this telly. I think I need to change that. There we go. That's what happens when you have a YouTube background on. But it's a lovely fireplace. Anyway, as I was saying, I don't think that you can make those changes from being outside of the institution. I think you need to be in it. Diana understood that, and even from the gaslit panorama interview, you could tell that she knew that the place to make those long-affecting changes was with her boys within the institution. She was an aristocrat. Let's not forget that Diana was brought up an aristocrat, so she knew and she respected the institution of monarchy. I think she felt that it needed to be modernized and changed, and of course, we are still seeing the long lasting change that Diana made from being within the institution. I think Harry and Meghan, if they had remained in the institution and stuck it out, I think they too could have made better, long affecting change, but I think you need to be in it, in this sort of institution, to actually make the change that they wanted. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. The motto, never complain, never explain. I still stand by that. I think for the majority of cases, that is a good motto and stance to take. We do know that the royal family at the moment have been taking that stance, and I think they will continue to do so. And it has worked very well. Not getting into that kind of tit for tat situation is definitely working for them, and it is making Harry and Meghan look like the bitter party that are firing missiles and attacks and broadsides at the royal family. Um, it does make them look desperate. So, whether you agree with that as a just a motto or not, I do think it is working for the royal family at present compared to Harry and Meghan's stance, which is, of course, to blurt everything out. Um, he says there's a lot of complaining and a lot of explaining being done through leaks. As I said, I don't agree with all the leaks. Um, They will feed or have conversations with the correspondent, and that correspondence will literally be spoon-fed information and write the story. And at the bottom of it, they will say they've reached out to Buckingham Palace for comment. But the whole story is it's Buckingham Palace commenting. So when we're being told for the last 6 years we can't put a statement out to protect you, but you do it for other members of the family, there becomes a point when silence is betrayal. So again, that's a big extract of that interview. Again, we don't know the entire whole context, but we do know that Harry is talking about what he feels he's experienced in the past. Now, obviously, royal journalists do get their information from somewhere. You know, they can't just you know, they don't just know it. They don't just know these things. So I think for years we have known that the palace has had little sort of backstairs words, if you like, to the press. So I don't think that comes as any great surprise. The bit that I don't like, as I've said before, is if it's briefing against other royals. That's the bit I don't agree with, and I will say that that isn't right. I would change it. Um, so I don't think he said anything there that we particularly wouldn't expect. Um, but the parts about putting out a statement to protect you, um, I think one of the things that has come to light since Harry and Meghan left is that although I remember sitting and saying that a lot of these stories and attacks on Harry and Meghan by the press were fake news. I remember, saying that I thought it was just made up by the reporters to, just to get some column inches on a slow news day. But that was before I knew that these leaks were kind of happening in the way that no, briefings against each royal principal in the way that they are. So I remember, thinking that it was all a load of baloney. Um, But then what's come out since is that there's been a lot of fact checking done against all the things that Harry and Meghan have actually said. And although the press got things twisted, there was a lot of basis in truth for the majority of those stories that came out. There was truth to the tiara story. You know, there and all the other different things. There was truth to the, I suppose, the bridesmaids dresses story. All these different stories, they did have the press didn't get them 100% right, but there was basis in truth. So I think that the palace wouldn't necessarily comment directly on all these different things because, in part, these things had some basis in truth. So I think that they actually were trying to protect Harry and Meghan by doing the never complain, never explain motto. Um, and by therefore, because if you commented on something that had some basis in truth, by explaining it, you might get yourself into more of a muddle. So I think that's what we were seeing. And I don't think Harry, from at least this extract that I can see, I don't think he can see that. Okay, so moving on, we get, I suppose, to the Tom Bradby information. Now, Tom Bradby, like I said, has this kind of special relationship with Harry and William over the years. Um, and yeah, he said to Tom Bradby that the royal family has shown absolutely no willingness to reconcile with him. Now, and that he wants his father and brother back. Now, I think it's a bit of a strange way to go about reconciling, is to be having, well, to doing the Oprah interview in the first place, then the Netflix, and then, I think this is the reason why they haven't wanted to reconcile, because they've known that Harry is going to, well, has done the Oprah interview and then has continued to do things. So I think they're angry. I think, Charles and William are not very happy with Harry. Um, I think they would have been. I still think they didn't want him to leave, um, but I think if he had left and just got on with life, had businesses, worked on projects that were not harpooning and the family, I think things would have thawed a lot better. I think they would have accepted a lot sooner Harry's decision to step back, and that, that he was going to make money, because he still needs to make money, of course, to fund his lifestyle. But he doesn't have to fund it in the way that he is funding it. He can fund it, by setting up businesses and, not necessarily doing, because let's not forget that the Netflix documentary rumored to have netted him and Meghan in excess, or roundabout up to $100 million, $20 million advance for the book. So let's not make, any mistakes about it. Even if there's charitable donations from some of these projects, they are making money from it for themselves. They are making their own personal money. And I don't think that is going to go down well with Charles and William. Let's put yourself in that situation. If you were making millions of dollars off the back of your family, even if you think that you have been wronged, is that going to go any way to reconcile with your family? Just put yourself in that situation. Put your own family members in that situation. How would they feel? Are these the actions of somebody who wants to reconcile with their family? I think not. So I think that they would have been more accepting had Harry just stepped back, got on with life, launched businesses. Meghan could have gone back into acting or voiceover work, or launched clothing lines, whatever it is they wanted to do. But no, a lot of things, most things that they've done since leaving has been trash talking the family. That is not going to go any way to reconciling. Right, I'm going to go to the comment section. Oh, dare I go to the comment section? I don't know. James Med 4, I'm going to go down the bottom. Blah, blah, blah. James Med 4 says, His father and brother are trying to keep the monarchy going. They're a little busy. Well, yeah, they have an institution to keep going. And I think, this whole thing about the heir and the spare, you know, it's always going to be a little unfair in this sort of institution. Harry was never going to be the one that was going to be king, unless, of course, anything happened to William. So Harry knows this. Harry knows that that is the case. But even though Harry was, unlikely to ever be king, Harry was always given a plum role within the institution. He was given a royal dukedom. You know, in the end, he was given his own foundation to set up with Meghan. There were a lot of concessions made to keep Harry happy. Harry was given really plum military roles. He inherited, sort of took over one from his grandfather. Harry was always going to be by his brother's side in a very important role, supporting his brother, who in turn is is the monarchy. So Harry and Meghan were always going to have important roles. I think where, perhaps Meghan didn't necessarily like it and Harry is that William and Catherine, were always going to have this extra layer. They were going to be Prince and Princess of Wales and then become King and Queen. I don't know how that fitted, well with Meghan's ideas where, let's face it, you know, being brought up with the American dream. It's a really nice concept where there are no limits. There are no limits with the American dream. You can go on and you can reach the highest heights with the American dream. Back in the UK, when you're in a monarchical constitutional institution, there are limits. There are limits to where you can go. Meghan can't be queen. Meghan can't be Princess of Wales. Neither can Harry be king or prince or the Prince of Wales unless anything puts him in that situation, which is relatively unlikely. So there are limits, and I don't think those limits went down very well with Meghan. And I think, of course, Meghan, being independently wealthy, knew that there was another way. She could see that there was another path, and I think Harry's gone there. And all this idea of kind of being half in, half out, that was never going to work. You can't have your cake and eat it. Right, let's read a few more. Lou says, can I ask what Archerwell, the company, actually does? Well, this is where I think it's a little bit confusing and a little bit naughty. I've always said this when they set it up of Harry and Meghan. So there's the Archerwell Foundation, which of course is their sort of charitable non-profit part. That's the good bit. That's the bit that actually does do good work, and they have launched some good projects that have benefited people. I don't think anyone, can take away from people receiving charitable donations or good works being done. That's fine. What doesn't fit very well with me is that there is also the Archerwell Audio, the Archerwell production company, the bit that does the Netflix. These are the bits that make the personal money for them. And although they may say that they're making donations from that, the lion's share of that money will go to Harry and Meghan. So to have it all under the name of Archewell, when people might be a bit confused, thinking that it's for charity, I don't think sits very well. I think they should be a lot more transparent, no, clear, between the separation between the charitable part of it and their own individual money-making part. I'm not saying that they shouldn't make their own money. I am not saying that. One bit. I am not saying that categorically. But I am saying how they choose to make that money, where they make that money. It's all about choices. Choices. Um, right. I'm just going to go up a little bit because I think I've missed a few comments. Little Annie says it was the Queen's view that you are all in or all out. You cannot be half in, half out. Yeah, I just said that. I believe that all this business is because they got cut off financially. I mean, you can't draw on money that's been given because of the privilege that you've been born into. You can't continue that and then not do the work. And all this thing about, royal protection, it's all a complete load of nonsense. Don't forget that the precedent for losing royal protection was with Beatrice and Eugenie. I forget what year it was, but it was way before the birth of the Cambridge children. And Beatrice and Eugenie, before the Cambridge children, they were at one time fifth and sixth in line to the throne. They too were HRHs. They too were grandchildren of a reigning monarch. But crucially, they were royal princesses, HRHs, that were not full-time working royals. So they lost their royal protection, being fifth and sixth in line to the throne. Um, Harry lost his when he stepped back and became a non-working royal. And I think he was sixth in line to the throne. I think he's gone back up to fifth now. Um, so that is where the precedent came from. It's got nothing to do with, Harry personally. Beatrice and Eugenie lost it. There was a whole thing about Prince Andrew being really angry because he wanted his daughters to have the protection, blah, 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 blah. So that's where the precedent has come from. There's nothing personally against Harry. They looked at the situation. Beatrice and Eugenie were not working royals. They lost it. Harry and Meghan stepped back, not being working royals. They lost it. That's what it is. Precedent is precedent. Let's have a look. Jewelry. Yes. So this is a replica of the Canadian maple leaf brooch, which the Queen often wears. I'm sure we'll see this on Camilla. And my tiara today, it looks a little bit similar to the Cambridge Lovers Knot tiara, but it's not. The Cambridge Lovers Knot tiara, the one that we used to see Diana wearing and now Catherine wearing, doesn't have the pearls. This is actually the tiara that the Lovers Knot tiara was based upon. So this was actually worn by the Duchess Augusta, and she had this was her Lovers Knot tiara, and this is what the Cambridge Lovers Knot tiara was based upon. And we have another advert. Let me have a look at this. Right, next time I'm choosing a fireplace in the background that doesn't have adverts. So I really like this one. I quite like the pearls on the top. Of course, the Lover's Knot just has some diamonds, but I think it's really lovely. So I do enjoy wearing that one. Cedar says there is no royal family in the US. Yeah. It's offensive for Harry and his wife to be constantly attempting to be royals in exile and influencing Americans when it's not our business how the royals live. I mean, obviously not being American, I don't know fully, the culture. I've been to America a couple of times, but I don't really know, how a nation feels. I think you have to be brought up, I think, or lived in a nation for a very long time to really get to grips with how a nation feels, the kind of the national psyche, if you like. So I don't know. I know what the British psyche is, but I can't say what the USA, what the American one is. Um, but no, I just think they should get on with their lives. I think all of this is going to completely backfire on them. I think they should just get on. There's so many things that they could do to make money. I mean, just look at, for example, you know, the business ventures that the Kardashians do. I mean, I'm not saying Harry and Meghan should be like the Kardashians, but they've got clothing line, they've got makeup. I'm sure Harry and Meghan could do wellness and fitness things. I think they've already got a wellness book being planned. They don't need to do this. This is not essential. It's all about choices. And if the primary goal is to reconcile with your family, why do this? The mind really does boggle. James Medford says a British journalist said Diana focused most of her anger on Charles, not the Queen, or the British royal family. People understand marriage problems. Yeah, more than my brother yelled at me, blah blah blah. I mean, that's you know. I mean, are you really going to be frightened by your brother who you've known and you've grown up with and gone through a shared experience and tragedy with? you know, in front of your father and the Queen. Is that really going to be frightening? I mean, come on. Um, let's have a look. Stephanie says Prince Harry stated that his father told him he couldn't fight the media and seemed to acknowledge uh, this wisdom in the Netflix documentary. I think I'm trying to remember. I think it was actually the Oprah interview that really explained at the very start of the Oprah interview. I think this is the one thing that the Oprah interview did really well. I'm sure it was Oprah. If I've got muddled, I'm sure somebody will correct me. But it really showed this kind of symbiotic relationship and explained it quite well um, between the institutional monarchy and the press and the state kind of in the middle. And it is really a symbiotic relationship. You know, the one almost can't exist without the other. It is about give and take. So, you know, Charles is obviously kind of deemed, and the Queen before him had kind of deemed that you have to give and take. It's a give and take relationship. And I think Harry and Meghan pretty much wanted to take. And again, I do think it's a bit of a culture clash. You know, not Meghan's fault in this instance, but being brought up in the USA where you know there isn't that kind of symbiotic relationship, where as a celebrity you can much more greatly control what the press do and say about you. You can almost kind of step back and you know not be in the spotlight when you don't want. I mean, you know, look at Beyonce. I mean, she's mega famous, mega talented. She almost chooses when she wants to be visible, she's visible. When she doesn't want to be visible, she's not visible. That doesn't happen when you're a member of the royal family. There is that symbiotic relationship, and I don't know. I don't think that. I think Meghan was probably very confused by that. But I'm sure it was the Oprah interview at the start that explained that quite nicely. Um, there we go. Right, I'm going to kind of zoom back to the bottom. Lauren says, sadly, I feel this will never be resolved. Well, I don't think it will be whilst all this kind of stuff's going on. And I hope we're not having the same conversation in 20 years. Personally, let me lay my cards on the table. I I am all for a reconciliation. I don't believe that families should be split up. I don't believe of this level of mistrust and misunderstanding should should carry on. I do believe that relationships should be made up and reconciled, but I don't think this is the way to do it. I really don't. The royal family do not have control of the press. There is a symbiotic relationship. I'm just speaking to royal machinations. Um, no, the royal family do not have control of the press at all. If they had control of the press, would we have seen in the 90s Tampon Gate? Yes, I'm going to go there. Let's go to Tampon Gate. Would we have seen Tampon Gate come out? Do you think if Charles had control of the press and they were all in his pockets, that that would come out? And there are so many other different instances as well where there have been negative stories about the royal family. You know, do you think Fergie's toe sucking scandal would have been leaked? You know, come on, use this, use this, people, and don't be gaslit. Right, and I think that's pretty much all that I've got to say for today. I've been yakking at you for 38 minutes, so I'm going to go off and I'm going to polish my tiara. I'm going to have another cup of tea, and I might edit another video. So thank you so much for watching this. I am going to watch the interviews when they come out. Like I've said before, I've cancelled the book. I'm not going to read the book. All the snippets will come out from that. Um, I've only watched one episode of the Netflix documentary. Wasn't very keen on that. But I am going to watch the interviews. I think I will definitely watch the interviews, and I will come and I will comment all about that. So thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to share this video. I'm not entirely sure the algorithm is pushing out, probably because I've had a break from the channel. So it might take a while for things to kind of get back. But we know we do have 225 people live. So at least some of you are getting the notifications. So please like, share, comment. And for now, it's a goodbye from me. And I hope you all have a really lovely day and evening. Mwah.